Hi everyone, and welcome to the first, potentially, of many new videos that I'm going to be trialing. Today I am going to attempt, attempt is the important word, to show you how to create a special effects look. So the look that I'm going to be, again, attempting to create today is a Cupid style look, and I've made this Cupid's arrow here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to make it look like that has been shot through my eye and come out the other side of my face here. So I did a similar thing last year with the arrow going through my head this way, but it didn't work out so well. So I'm going to try it a different way this time and show you guys how I'm creating it, so that if you're going to a Valentine's party, you're going out, you can, spice up your makeup with just a little bit of special effects. So before we get started, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the things that you're going to need to create a look like this. And the very first thing that you'll need is a little cotton round. It's just standard that you can pick up from anywhere. It doesn't have to be round, but it does have to kind of fit over your eye. So obviously this one for me fits pretty perfectly, so that's great. You are going to need your arrow. I actually made mine, so the main body of the arrow is a paper straw. This little heart here is literally just black cardboard, and the feathers on top are literally plucked from a feather duster that my mom bought from Poundland. So you can create something that looks pretty good with, you can be crafty with it. Be crafty with it. I encourage that. And you're going to need to create this look. You're going to need some kind of special effects glue, whether that is liquid latex. I think you could get away with just liquid latex on its own, and that could be picked up pretty cheap from anywhere, especially if it's, if you're planning on doing this kind of look for Halloween. I literally picked some up from the pound shop again, my favorite place at the moment. So liquid latex. If you want to go a bit fancier with it, or if you have some already kind of knocking about, spirit gum as well. I will probably use both in this video, but I will let you know when I think that you could just get away with liquid latex on its own, so that's fine. And you also need some kind of water-soluble glue, like a glue stick, to glue at least one of your eyebrows down. I have both of mine glued because I draw my brows on a lot higher than my natural brows sit. But if you wanted to just use like your one normal brow on your pretty eye, you'd still need to glue the brow on the special effects side down, so that when you come to take this off, you're not pulling your brow hairs out with the special effects glue, because that can happen. So please protect your natural brows, and all this stuff can be picked up super cheap, so go searching. The first thing that you're going to really want to do is prep your materials. So what I'm starting off with doing is actually cutting the edge around my cotton pad. It's easier for your cotton pad, I think, to be round, because obviously that's the kind of shape that you're going for. But if you have a square cotton pad, for example, you can just cut it into a round shape. But the reason that you want to cut the edges off is because you don't want them to look too clean. This is a wound that we're creating. Nothing about them generally is clean. So I'll show you my half finished one, and obviously here we've got the edge that I've started to kind of cut off and fray, and on the other side this is the clean edge, and I honestly just find that it looks so much better when it's a little bit kind of haphazard. It looks more realistic. So I literally just take a pair of my nail scissors and cut the very edge of the cotton pad off. You don't want to be taking too much of it actually off the shape if it kind of fits to your eye already, which mine does. And then once the edges are gone like that, you can literally just start pulling at the edge of these pads, and as you can see, like, it will start to come away, which is fine because we'll be gluing it with latex or spirit gum anyway in a minute, so that's fine. But this just makes the wound look much more realistic and much less kind of pristine and created. So continuing with prep work, the way that I have decided to try and prep my arrow today is just, I cut the straw in half. I measured about how far I want this to be coming kind of out of my eye, and all I did was kind of fray the bottom out so it has little feet like this. Arguably it could have done that better, but you're not going to see it, so it doesn't really matter. And what I've also done is I've cut a tiny little hole in my cotton pad so that I can pop the arrow through here, and then it will give it a little bit of stability when it's like sitting on my skin. Last year what I struggled with was the arrow just completely falling off. I was trying to use scar wax, I think, to keep it on, and even though I thought that the arrow I'd made was super light, it just kept falling off my skin, getting in my wig, being generally really annoying. So I'm hoping that by putting it through the cotton pad this year, it will just give it a little bit of extra support. Full disclosure, I'm trying to capture as much of this on camera as possible, but the arrow again was misbehaving. The cotton pad didn't actually give it as much support as I imagined it would. So what I ended up having to do was actually glue the like little stem of the arrow here to the cotton pad, and then I've also put more cotton over the front of it. I've glued it a little bit to my forehead up here as well, so I'm just hoping that that will be enough to just keep it up. This is super light, so just getting things to stick to the contours of your face is really, really difficult. If anybody's got any better tips on how to achieve that, please do let me know. But all I've done is I've stuck the cotton pad itself on with spirit gum. I prefer spirit gum a little bit because I think it's easier to remove. And then I just tapped over the top of the cotton with liquid latex on a sponge. And I do want to just put in a disclaimer at this point that you need to be careful when working with liquid latex, spirit gum, or any kind of special effects materials. Please just don't do anything stupid with it. Don't put it in your eye. Obviously we're working with the eye area, but yeah, avoid putting it in your eye at all costs. But the arrow is on, and let's try and work quickly to make sure that it stays that way. Now what you're going to want to do is go in with black to really create the depth that you are going to want in this, and just essentially create a circle. Try and keep the edges quite like raw. Again, we're trying to make it look relatively realistic here. So, and that will create the depth as if there's actually a hole in your face. Seems so weird to say all of this stuff out loud now. And while you're doing this, it's a good idea to keep in mind how wide you've made the end of your arrow. Obviously mine is pretty wide. It doesn't need to be completely accurate, but if you're going with like a tiny little hole, it's not gonna reflect the size of your arrow. Then just bear that in mind and just keep adding depth to the black. I am literally just using a black face paint to do this. You could use alcohol paint if you've got that. You could also probably just use grease paint, or even like black lipstick, I guess, would work if you're really in a pinch. But if you're interested in kind of doing any more special effects makeup, I would recommend just picking up at least a black and a white face paint. I've had mine since I started drag almost 2 years ago. There is still loads left. This is my black. I probably use this the most. And I think this cost me like a couple of pounds from Moon Creations, so definitely try and pick up some colours because they're so useful. So still working with face paint, what I'm doing now is just literally going in with a red. This is Moon Creations again, and you can start to kind of get a bit messier here. I started going in with this red while the black was still a little bit wet, so that meant that I can kind of blend the two colours into each other, which again is going to just help with the depth and help with how realistic the whole thing looks. And to be honest, after having thought about it, I know I literally just said in the last clip, you could use grease paint, you could use lipstick if you're in a pinch. Whilst you can, I do think that face paint or like some kind of water-based paint is going to be the way to go, just because you are working on top of cotton and that can be quite difficult to work with face paint is just so easy and it's so cheap. I'm now at the point in the process where I'm starting to go in with more kind of grease paint. What I'm using here is the Kryolan Bruise Wheel. I'm currently using this red, and I might use some of the other colours later to kind of add, again, a bit of depth, a bit of dimension. And you essentially want to kind of be getting quite messy with this now, like, and just tapping it all around the edges of your fake wound. If you think about how your skin would actually be wounded in a situation like this, even though the entry point is just this black bit here, you've got a lot of blood and you've got the fact that your skin would be really irritated. So you want to essentially try and be getting in and covering like all those white bits, and essentially what you're doing is like blending out the edges here of your cotton round. This is where it helps as well that what we did earlier, just fraying the edges of the cotton pad so that it doesn't look too fake. But yeah, I think at this point you can kind of really start to see it coming together more, so that's good. Next, I am going in with a red eyeshadow and just tapping that around the outside of the wound that you've created. Again, don't be too afraid to go too big with this because your skin is going to be very irritated. And also, this is makeup and it's supposed to be fun and theatrical, and it just helps to add to the whole illusion, I think. So I think now you can start to see that the cotton pad here has actually created dimension, and it does look like this is kind of like raised skin and this in the middle is kind of sunken. I have added some blood splatter off camera, and I did this just by using my red face paint. Just make sure that it's quite watery so that you can get the splatter effect. And I just used a flat brush like this and just tapped it like this when it was saturated with the face paint, and it created that splatter effect. I did it off camera because I thought that the splashback might actually be on the camera if I did it while filming. I usually use a toothbrush to create this kind of effect, to be honest, but I've just put like brand new false nails on that are not painted yet, and I didn't want them to get stained with red face paint basically, so just a little splatter, nothing too crazy. Before going any further with any more fake blood, even though it is tempting and I do love it and I think it will really transform the look of especially this black bit in the middle, it is very messy and it can get very sticky, so I am just going to stick the bottom part of the arrow on first. I'm going to do that again with spirit gum, and again, like the top part of the arrow, I did create a little foot here just on the end. I did also shorten the straw, but I think that's about right. And because the arrow is kind of so deep like into my chin, I don't think it will actually require too much special effects work to make it look any kind of realistic, basically. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, everything was looking a bit precarious there for a minute, so I did a lot of this off camera. Even as I'm talking now, I can see this arrow moving with the fact that I'm moving my jaw, so I'm trying to keep this as short and sweet as possible. I think that this is the finished look, and I do think it's turned out a lot better than my look from last year. And I also think that it's turned out a lot better than the other like shot through the eye look that I did for Halloween, where I did a Squid Game inspired look. Was it very difficult to achieve? Yes. Did it take a lot of twists and turns that I didn't expect it to take? Also yes. So I ended up having to stick this arrow to the bottom of my chin using cotton wool as well. And then I just added like the very watery faint face paint to create this kind of like dripping effect down from the wound. I also added my scab blood, which is very sticky and quite hard to work with on top of a medium like cotton wool that wants to like come off the pad. But I do think that it looks really good. And even though I am currently afraid to move too much, I am really happy with how it's turned out, and I think that this is going to make a great finale look for my Valentine's series. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been slightly less stressful for you than it was for me, and I hope that you have learned something. Or if not, if you've watched this video to critique me, please do, but please do it in the comments, okay? I really want to improve on techniques like this. I would ideally like to use less scab blood and for everything to be less sticky, less messy, less like easy to kind of get wrong at the drop of a hat. So yeah, please do share any tricks or tips that you found out. I have got fake blood on absolutely everything right now, so I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this has helped, and I will see you in the next one.